Joining us now on the Picks for Polls podcast, we've got Bob Asmussen in the house. He's the Fighting Illini reporter for the Champaign News Gazette. You can follow him on X at Bob Asmussen. Let's go ahead and get into it, Bob. How's it going? Thanks so much for being on here.
Oh, thanks for asking me on, and very good on my name, by the way. You did it great. So congrats. First one ever, actually. So great.
Awesome. Well, it's awesome. I think delighted to be the first person, to finally get it correct. Because I'm sure, you being in this industry a long time, probably have done, tons of podcasts and radio appearances.
Yeah, quite a few over the years. And name has been butchered badly, which is fine. I don't care, so it's fine. I'm not sensitive. Different things I'm sensitive about. Make fun of the Braves, I'm mad, but my name, I don't care.
Yeah, see, me, right, I am kind of in the same boat, just because I feel like there's 3 or 4 ways that people pronounce my name, so I'm just kind of in this, all right, you know what? However people say it is cool. If they come up with a good nickname for me, that works even better, but again, it is what it is, but kind of in the same boat like you, I don't mind anymore. But let's get right into it. Sure. Covering Fighting Illini, they're going into the 4th year of the Brett Bielema era. There is a lot of different things going on. They've sent some guys to the NFL over the last couple of years, namely, a couple high picks like a Devin Witherspoon, a Jerzon Newton. Right. Keith Randolph Jr. is now on the Bears. He signed with them as an undrafted free agent. What can you tell us about Keith Randolph Jr., who he is as a player and as a person, having covered him in 2024?
Okay, a couple of things. I was very surprised he was not drafted. I think that probably had more to do with his injury situation than maybe his talent level. He was banged up, I think, during the combine part, couldn't do a lot of things physically. So I think that hurt him. But he, production-wise, very good player and a great kid, an unreal kid. If you know this, great high school basketball player. Played in the St. Louis area and was a state champion a couple of years in a row, I believe, with A.J. Liddell, played on the same team. So I think Keith was the enforcer. He claims he was really good. I don't think he was really good. He was pretty good. But he was good enough to be a great basketball player, good enough to be a scholarship guy in basketball, and obviously a really good football player. I think he came here with the idea of maybe a different concept of what he would play, but I think tackle was perfect for him.
So based on what you've seen, do you think he has a legit shot to make this roster? Because I look at this Bears D line right now and I say, there's a lot of open competition that's going to be taking place when this team gets to training camp. But Keith Randolph Jr., to me is a player that, quite frankly, fans should be watching as a hidden gem.
I would be shocked if he does not make the team. Now, I know their defense is getting a lot better, been almost like a top 10 defense. So I think he'll make that team. I don't think he'll play a whole lot early, but I think over time he'll ingratiate himself to the coaches, to his teammates. They'll like him. He's a great guy, and I think he will play. He's got a motor. He's got a lot of things that NFL people seem to love. So I think Keith has a great chance, and he will probably outperform what happened to him in the draft. I think that will be everybody, like I said, a couple of years from now will say, hey, why was he not drafted? But he's really talented, physically gifted, and also great athlete. So that makes a lot of difference for him, I think.
And he's going to be one name to watch when the Bears do report to camp next month. But, it's on to 2024 for Illinois, and there's a lot of changes that have kind of taken place here. You look at the Big Ten, it's no longer just teams on the East Coast as well as here in the Midwest. You now have some West Coast teams joining. What's the feeling around the program with teams like Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA all set to join the conference? Because Illinois is set to play in Eugene later this year.
Right, and I think if they were playing anybody but them, they'd probably say, let's go for it. They obviously nobody in the program can badmouth the idea of expansion because it's happened. So there's no reason to say anything other than, hey, great, welcome the team, welcome the conference. But I think playing at Oregon, which to me is the top 5 team this year, that's a tough draw. Illinois could have had any of the other 3 would have been fine. That one's hard. I've actually been out there for a game against Illinois several years ago, Illinois got beaten in a close game and had to lead late. So I think they'll feel like they can go out there and play, but that's a different team, a really good loaded team with a good quarterback. So yes, I think generally the mood here is pretty positive. I think they realize something was going to happen to the Pac-12, and the Big Ten has a long-term commitment to the conference, so it made some sense to add them. It's going to be weird when they go to Oregon and go to Washington, but again, you got teams like Texas playing the SEC. You got teams spread all over the place. The Big 12 is crazy, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. Actually, planes go everywhere, right?
And yes, they do. You talk about, I think, the head coach, Brett Bielema. They're going into year 4 under his leadership. There's been a lot of positive. I think his second season, they finished, I believe it was 8-5 or something. Or that might have been like...
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so but then last year, people look at that win-loss record and say, okay, well, they kind of regressed a bit. But what's the feeling around Bielema going into year 4, knowing that, he's starting to finally put his mark on this program?
It definitely took a step backward, given the players they had on the team. Johnny Newton was on the team, Keith Randolph, they had good Isaiah Williams, receiver. They had good players on the team. But I think people thought after 8-5, they'd come back and frankly, I thought they'd win 9 or 10 games. So they didn't do that, lost a lot of close games. Late in the season, lost the last 2 by, I think both games were by 2 points to Iowa and Northwestern. So when either of those games get to a bowl, it's a different feeling. But you're right. First year for Bielema, they went 5-7, could have won 8 or 9 games. Didn't do that. Lost a bunch of close games. Then the next 8-5 year, then 5-7 again. I think it's really important for this team, the coaching staff, to get back to a bowl game. So whatever that means, 6 wins is going to be enough for the fan base to think that they're going in the right direction. The recruiting is going well. They have a really good staff on hand. Bielema has proven he can coach at a high level. So that's not concerned. He's not in any kind of trouble. So if he went 4-8 to something this year, which I don't think will happen, he would be fine. He's good. He's got 6 more years, maybe 5 more years on his contract. It cost Illinois a fortune to get out of it. So he's not going anywhere. They're safe. They just want to get better. And I think that's why his talk. Whether or not they can do that given the schedule is a good question.
Yeah, and you talk about, continuing to get better. I know I mentioned earlier that this is a school which they have Devin Witherspoon as a top 5 pick in 2023. They sent him to the league. Johnny Newton, another guy that was drawing a lot of first-round consideration. Doug Kramer's another player that was drafted by the Bears, a local product. But you look at what's kind of coming up next in the pipeline, because when you sit down, you assess this roster, there's 2 big takeaways. I think the first thing is that there's a lot of young guys, like freshman, sophomore, kind of your first, second-year players. But then there's a lot of those juniors and seniors that kind of have arrived in Champaign through the transfer portal that are kind of looking to take a step forward in their development and their football careers, and they believe that coming to a Big Ten program like this is worth it. But who are some names to kind of watch that could potentially declare for the draft in 2025?
Well, quarterback Luke Allmeyer, who was in his second year, late in the year last year, got hurt, missed the last 4 games, mostly because he was the guy that replaced him, John Paddock, played great. So Luke left the field for a couple games, but he's ready. He's back in a full force, had a great spring game. He's a talented guy. I think he would like to move on after this year if he has that kind of season. He's going to have to throw for 3,000. If he has a good year, if he has an NFL-worthy year, it's going to mean good things for Illinois. But I think he throws for 3,000 plus yards and throws a bunch of touchdown passes. He'll be set for that. So he's a guy down the road, not probably this year. Caden Fagan is a running back, big guy, local guy from Arthur, nearby Champaign. 6'4", probably 250 at this point. He's a big guy, but running back and speed and everything you look for. Maybe too big as a running back, but a really good player. Got hurt late last year in the middle of a great freshman year. He's going to be a player that has a great chance to be good. So I think who else it fits them. But they have a couple linemen that are going to be really good. So we'll see where they go. But I think Luke Altmaier is somebody I'd be looking for. Pat Bryant, receiver, going to be a junior this year. He'll have a chance to move on too.
So you mentioned the word lineman. I mean, mine automatically thinks JC Davis in terms of, coming in, being a transfer from, I believe it was New Mexico or New Mexico State. Who is he as a player? Because he, to me, when I watched the Fighting Illini last year, seemed to be the best offensive lineman that this program has seen in the last couple of years. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's 6'5", 320 pounds, has this massive wingspan, and then seems to play with a level of versatility that allows him to play a tackle, but also kick inside to guard if needed.
Yeah, I think he'll be a good, important player to them. I brought in this year, so he'll be a good player. They got a couple holdovers who are going to play important roles. I think that one. Whether or not those guys develop is the big question. But I think they've got some options at all the lines. The main thing that's been a problem here is lack of depth on the offensive line over the Bielema era. So if somebody got banged up, it was kind of a problem. They're trying to get through that. I think they have recruits playing center that's a really good player. And if he is able to be anything close to that, that'd be helpful. Josh Groot's great, really good player. See what he can do. Play like that, that'd be helpful too. But he's been a good center for them so far.
And so another guy to kind of mention is Pat Bryant. You said he's a guy that has a chance to move on. It seems like there's been some turnover there at the wide receiver position. Some of these guys did end up moving on to the next level, but Casey Washington, mainly one of the big ones that kind of you could consider as being a big departure. But is this kind of the year where Pat Bryant steps into the spotlight? He goes from just being this, wide receiver to being Luke Altmaier's number one target to being a big playmaker, in a conference that's loaded with them?
Yeah, I think all Big Ten should be his goal. That should be his goal. Isaiah Williams had a great season last year, became one of the all-time leading receivers here. He's gone. He's moved on. So he could have come back, actually. But I think Pat Bryant could get all those catches. So I think Pat Bryant has to be looking at 80-plus catches this year, 1,000-plus yards. Has to be in 10 touchdowns or more. I think he has to be a guy that by the end of the season has moved himself into the political conversation. Again, like with Altmaier, if Pat Bryant has a big year, he's got some help there. Malik Elzy was a freshman last year, played some, didn't do a whole lot. I think he's a guy that has great talent. Chicago guy, so we'll see what he does. But I think Pat Bryant is kind of a linchpin here for this offense especially.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to kind of see what Pat Bryant does, specifically because just on paper alone, I think when you start looking at the measurables, you're talking about a guy that's 6'3", 190. So you're getting someone who kind of fits that modern day mold of being that X receiver, but also going ahead and being the type of player that an offensive coordinator would kind of salivate over because you can move him both inside and outside. You kind of put him wherever you feel like his skill set's going to fit best. You could just move him all over the field and probably even develop a certain set of plays for him. But beyond just some of these guys like JC Davis and Pat Bryant, I mean, who are some names to watch on the defensive side of the ball? Because Seth Coleman and Gabe Jackus, two outside linebackers, are guys that kind of popped off last year. They have certainly, I think, hit their stride. Even bigger things seem to be in store for them for the upcoming season.
Yeah, I think Gabe is a great example. And a really good freshman year was really good. Maybe took a step back last year. Again, they had Newton and Randolph, so they kind of cut into that in terms of production, sacks, and that kind of thing. But then Gabe had a good spring, so I think they're hopeful about him. Seth Coleman, pretty steady player. So they're outside linebackers, which those guys are. That's by far the strength of the defense, not even close. That's an area, if you think about Illinois' history, that kind of makes some sense. But they're good inside, outside linebacker, pretty good at Illinois. The concerns are up front and the secondary, which has got some guys, but doesn't have that Devin Witherspoon. per se, or Sidney Brown. They don't have that great playmaker right now. Matt Bailey missed most of last year because of an injury. Is back full force, or will be. I think he's a guy that could be that 6-pick, multiple PBU type guy, makes a bunch of tackles. If he still stays healthy, he'll have a chance to be that player. Local, not local, but he's from Illinois, from the Quad Cities, and a really good player, a great leader. So he's a guy that I would be watching for sure, Matt Bailey.
And you talk about those playmakers that this secondary seems to lack, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, one guy to me that I think really sticks out just when you go back and you watch him, and kind of what he's done over the last couple of years in college is Demetrius Hill Jr. He's, to me, seems to be this guy that could play cornerback, but also kind of kick inside and play at the nickel position if needed. What's to know about him? Because he does seem to have a lot of the measurables that teams covet. And maybe even, he gets to that next level and the team's saying, okay, well, because of how big, fast, rangy, and physical you are, we want to try you out at safety as well.
Yeah, he's coming back from injury, so that's a little bit of an issue, but apparently the coach, we talked to Coach Bielema last week, he said he's back on track. So that's always good. When the coach says, yeah, the guy was out in the spring, is back ready to go, that's always important. So I think they're there with that. They've got some transfers that they're hopeful for, but I think Demetrius is one of those guys they're counting on. Xavier Scott, another guy they're counting on, who's played quite a bit for them so far. So they've got guys. It, again, is who develops. And these coaches have, the defense coordinator and everybody there, they do a good job making players better. Devin Witherspoon was recruited by Lev Smith, developed under Brett Bielema, became a top 5 pick under Bielema. I think that shows you what they can do. Sidney Brown, same thing, developed under these guys. I think these guys know what they're doing. The question is, can they do it enough this year to maybe stave off some of the issues they have up front?
I mean, and you talk about, kind of continuing to develop the players and just the state of the program. I look at this and I'm kind of the entire schedule. I love how, they're playing some of these teams on the West Coast and they're playing, a lot of those traditional Big Ten teams. But in your opinion, what's the most intriguing matchup on the schedule for Illinois going into the 2024 season?
Well, there's 2 huge games to me. Michigan, they play Michigan at home. It'll be the 100th anniversary of the what we call the Red Grange game, which is when he scored 4 touchdowns in 12 minutes. They beat Michigan at home in the dedication game in the stadium 100 years ago, 39-14. So they're playing them again basically the same day. So that's going to be a big deal to everybody here. They're making a big deal out of it. Going to have a lot of players back to be kind of like a homecoming, bonus homecoming. That's a huge game. The other game that's almost as big, maybe bigger, is the second game of the season. Kansas comes back here. Illinois went there last year, played there on a Friday night and got smoked. They lost by 11, but it was not that close. They were really a 4-touchdown game. Illinois went out there, just could not play with them. Kansas has a lot of guys back. I'm a top 25 voter. The Kansas will be my top 25 this year, preseason. So they're a good team, maybe a borderline playoff team. So if the Illinois is able to hang with them, maybe not beat them, but just stay closer than they did last year, that told me that they're going the right direction. That's the second game of the season at home, night game Saturday night. So kind of a big deal for Illinois. If they are able to win that game or play it close, it'll be a good sign for them.
Yeah, those are definitely 2 games, that I really look forward to watching. I mean, that Illinois-Michigan game is going to be one that I think a lot of people in the area are going to have on their calendar because, again, it's not often that, you get to go ahead and have basically 2 historical programs, I think, play on, what is such a significant day for the Fighting Illini. But last one from me here, what do you think is going to determine a successful season for Illinois in 2024? Because success, from a coach's perspective is not just going to be wins and losses. We've certainly over the last 3 seasons seen a lot of flashes of what this coaching staff can kind of develop this program into. But it also kind of gets to a point where at some point in time, everything has to start clicking and coming together.
I agree. I think the main thing is just general incremental improvement. In every phase, special teams, defense, offense, just getting better. And also, what killed them last year in a lot of ways was mistakes, penalties at the wrong time, old-time turnovers, which are always old-time, but that is really important for this team. So handle the ball, control the ball is a perfect role for Bielema. His team would be really balanced. So that means look all Meyer having a good year, throwing for X number of yards, but also the running game working, gaining chunks of yards, not depending on just on the arm of the quarterback, but also being able to move the ball side to side and run up the middle, all that kind of stuff. So I think just general improvement and just, the wins would be important. I think a bowl game is really absolutely critical. They want to keep getting better in this awesome 18-team Big Ten. You have to make steps, and the step would be go from 5-7 to 6-6 or 7-5 or 8-4, whatever that means.
Yeah, it's definitely going to go ahead and be something very interesting to watch, because the way that I look at it, is that there seems to be a lot of kind of hype surrounding this team, but then also because they're in such a loaded league and such a loaded conference, they ultimately seem to kind of fall through the cracks sometimes, but some way somehow manage to figure out a way to squeeze out, a couple extra wins or two here or there.
Yeah, I think this staff lacks the underdog rule. I think Bielema actually sneak up on teams, so I think he's not worried about where people think they are. He's more worried about where they are. So, to his credit, he's really a professional coach. I don't mean an NFL coach, but he's a guy that knows who he's doing. He handles the thing. I think he's in the 16th year as a head coach in college, so pretty big deal. Done a good job building the program, building recruiting back up after it kind of slid under Lovey. So we'll see what they do this year. But they have to take at least a tiny step up to continue the goal to go in the positive direction, because the ultimate goal here should be, and always will be, win the Big Ten and therefore make the playoffs. That should be their goals there. And they're not saying that that's not the goal this year, but it really isn't realistic. I think a year or two now, there already could be.
Yeah, it definitely is going to be something very intriguing to watch. Before we get out of here, where can people kind of follow you on the world of social media and just keep up with your work?
Okay, I'm at IlliniHQ.com and also at Bob Asmussen on X. I got to stop saying Twitter. Sorry about that. At Bob Asmussen.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for hopping on. We'll have to have you again at some point throughout this season, just to kind of check up on how guys like, Seth Coleman and Gabe Davis are doing. But you're welcome on here anytime.
Thanks so much. I appreciate that invite. Take care.